Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Did It Work? My name's Nina, and today I am making a braised short rib of beef recipe from Miss Maya Angelou from her cookbook, Hallelujah, the Welcome Table. And this is on page 81 for those that might want to cook along with me. So, this is another one of those recipes that I would normally do overnight. But I decided not to do this one overnight because I've never made it before and I wanted to be able to actually closely monitor it in case something went wrong. I was awake and I could smell it. So let's go ahead and get started with prepping the meat. So this recipe calls for 5 pounds of short ribs, cut in approximately 3-inch pieces. We're going to call these 3-inch pieces because what I'm not going to do is try to cut these because there's a huge bone in these and I'm not trying to get through that. So have your butcher do it at your grocery store. So the first instructions in the recipe says to heat your oven to 350, which I've already done. Then it says season the meat with salt and pepper and then sprinkle with meat tenderizers. Make sure you get both sides. As you can see, I'm seasoning this on a cookie sheet just so I can do it all at once and not worry about making too big of a mess. And I catch all of my extra spices on the bottom so I can sop it up later. And here's the pepper. 95% of the time, you're always going to see me use my salt and pepper mill because I like the flavor of those more. I am aware there's more than 2 sides, but for this seasoning with the salt and pepper, I'm just doing front and back. In parentheses, she says, I sprinkle meat tenderizer on all meat since I expect it to be tough. So here's my meat tenderizer, and I'm going to sprinkle it one by one on all sides. Here's a funny story. When I was in the store buying the short ribs, they only had one prepackaged on the shelf. So I had to go to the meat counter and asked if they had any more. Well, when I got up to the meat counter, there was a woman already waiting. So I got behind her and waited my turn. And when the gentleman came to help us, she says, do you have any short ribs? And he says, we do have some that are prepackaged on the shelf. Well, I was like, uh-oh, no, you don't. No, you don't, because I just picked up the last package. so I was like, no, 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 no. And so she looks at me, she goes, you want short ribs too? And I'm like, yeah, I'm making short ribs today. She's like, so am I. So we sat there and compared recipes because it was going to take about 10-15 minutes for them to cut up some more short ribs. And it was great. It was like, what are the chances that that happens? I have seasoned the meat with the salt and pepper, sprinkled with meat tenderizer, and now I'm going to dust it with flour. I am just going to use my fingers and make a mess all over my stove and dust these with flour. Now I'm going to flip them over, do the same with the other side. Okay, another reason why I did this in the baking sheet is now I can get all the sides with flour because the flour is at the bottom of the pan. And I said it's just a dusting. So I'm not trying to put a heavy coat on there. But I can do all sides by sopping it up from the bottom of my pan. After I've dusted them with flour, I'm going to brown all sides in oil in my Dutch oven. Turn my fire more closer to high, but not completely on high. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. So I'm going to just start putting a few of them in here to brown. Okay, so I've got my first batch pretty much browned on all sides. So I'm going to take it and put it back on that sheet pan, and I'm going to add in some more. I've turned my fire all the way up on high because the meat cooled down my pan, and I'm just wanting to brown on these. I'm not trying to cook them. I just want to brown. Okay, so I have now browned all the sides of my 5 pounds of short ribs, and I'm going to go to the next instructions of Miss Maya Angelou. I need to put the meat back into the pot. I don't know why I took it out. Okay, there's all of my meat in my Dutch oven, and I'm going to add the stock. Now it requires to have 3 cups of meat stock. I got beef stock. Go ahead and turn your fire out. There's 1, 2, and there's 3. Cover and bake in oven for 1 hour. So while this is in the oven for an hour, I'm gonna go ahead and prep my vegetables. There's a lot of chopping and stuff that I need to do, and so I'm gonna kind of go through that. I'm not gonna make you sit through it all, but I am going to start doing some of the chopping and let you know what it is that she puts in here. So the first thing that I'm going to do are carrots. Now I will say for anybody who particularly likes carrots a lot, you can add more for people that particularly like me that don't like cooked carrots very much. Um, Either stick with the suggested recipe, which is 5 carrots or 5 peeled carrots, or put less. I am putting less because I don't necessarily like to waste food, and I do want the carrots in there for flavor, but I know I won't eat them, so I'm not putting that many in there. I did buy whole carrots and I am chopping them down, but we all know you can buy um, the little carrots that are about this big that are already pre-peeled and pre-cut. They'll work. I just didn't do it that way. I decided to do it this way because I'm going to have the time. I have that 1 hour to waste. Okay, so I have my carrots peeled, rinsed off. I'm going to cut them. It says about 1.5 inches or so. I'm doing it by sight. That's enough for me. I am not a huge fan of carrots. Next, got to do the onion in about 1.5 inch pieces. So for this, I'm going to do it the same way that I do for my roast. Okay, so I've got my onion going down, and then I'm just cutting these like this. They're going to wilt down really well in those short ribs, and then they're gonna sop up those spices and juices, and they're gonna taste so good. And I'm cutting up a white onion. And the reason why I'm using white onions is because when I looked at the yellow onions in the store, I didn't like the way they looked, and the white onions looked better. So, hence, yep, white onions. I am putting all these in a bowl because I'm going to add them all at once anyway. Next, I got my celery. I'm gonna just take the leaves off, cut them down the middle. And she just says to chop them. She says 3 stalks. In my grocery store, I can buy individual stalks. And so I bought 3 stalks so I didn't waste any celery. Got all of my celery cut in half, rinse them off, and then I'm going to just give them a nice rough chop, as big or small as you want them. I'm doing them kind of small. I do like celery, but I don't like big chunks of it when it's cooked. Add those to my bowl. Then calls for 3 cloves of garlic diced. Take these and give them a good smash. Woo, so satisfying, so satisfying. Take the skin off of them. And then I'm just going to put these in a nice line and give them a nice dice. Adding this to my bowl. I got 2 bell peppers that it wants me to put in there as well. Took the seeds out. I'm going to rinse them out. There is a short on how I cut bell peppers as well. And it says to cut into large pieces. I'm going to just cut these into strips. Put them all in the bowl. I'll be back when the hour's up and we'll go to the next step. I've probably got about 40 minutes left, so that took me about 20 minutes to cut all my vegetables. Okay, I did not hit record. I'm sorry. So we've added the carrots, onions, celery, garlic, bell peppers, and moved it around in there. That's what I've done so far. 1, 2 bay leaves. Here's the tomato paste that it called for. Then it called for a 28-ounce can of tomatoes. I'm going to move this around in here. This is definitely a full pan. If you have a bigger pot, I suggest you use a bigger pot. Unfortunately, since it is only me, this is the biggest pot that I have in my house. When I moved, I gave away all of my really big pots and pans. All right, kind of mix that up in there a little bit. And the last thing I need is the wine. And it is calling for 1 cup of good Cabernet Sauvignon. All right, here's my 1 cup of Cabernet Sauvignon, however that's pronounced. Whew, nice color in there. You know, I've been loving cooking with alcohol, hence that honey whiskey beef roast that I did earlier. I will redo that one, give it a better one since it was one of the very first ones that I did. Kind of getting that stuff in there again. I'm going to stick it back in the oven. Return to oven and cook for another hour and a half. Meat should be very tender. So I will see you guys in an hour and a half. Just out of precaution, I did put a baking pan on the rack below where I have the short ribs in case it does spill over since mine is so full. Welcome to the tasting table. So it is all done a few hours later, and I made a meal out of mine. So I have, of course, the short ribs, have a little bit of parsley that I put on it after it was done per the instructions. I have some braised cabbage right here, which is a recipe that I've already done. That was from Maya Angelou. This is from Maya Angelou. And then I have my sweet potato mash that I decided to pair with it. And this is my dinner for tonight. And so I do have a short that I'm going to be doing a voiceover for the sweet potato mash because I left my camera running when I was making the sweet potato mash, but I didn't do any talking on it. So I'll do a voiceover to show you what I did with it. So here we go. Let's see how this all came out, especially the short rib. So look at this. Nice and tender. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is delicious. Oh wow. I can taste all those flavors from the tomatoes and the garlic and the onions and the pepper in there. That broth, it's absolutely wonderful. Sweet potato mash accompanies this so extremely well. And how about my ginger braised cabbage? This is a perfect dinner. I made both of these the last 45 minutes of my cook. So this is definitely go. This is wonderful. If I was to make this again, which I will make this again, only thing I would do different is I think I would use fresh tomatoes versus the canned tomatoes. Still have the tomato paste. Um, that's about the only thing I would change. This is absolutely wonderful. So I am going to finish eating my dinner. I will see you guys next time. As always, cook with your soul, love with your heart. My name is Nina. Bye.